Imagine this: the lifetime of savings that was supposed to hand you the keys to a grand mansion yesterday, suddenly, when you wake up one morning, can barely buy you a single loaf of bread. Imagine your hard-earned salary melting away the very moment it reaches your hands, turning into nothing more than a worthless piece of paper. Picture that terrifying scene where people carry money not in wallets but in wheelbarrows because it no longer fits. This is not a dark science fiction scenario. This is the rawest, most brutal form of economics, hyperinflation itself. The dusty shelves of history have witnessed this collapse far more times than the modern world would like to believe. We tend to see money as a safe harbor, an unshakable constant of life, yet the painful lessons of the past whisper a very different truth. The systems we trust are, in reality, hanging by a thread. The darkest periods of hyperinflation in history did not merely wipe out the numbers in bank accounts. They brought mighty empires to their knees, shattered governments, and tore apart the very foundations of families. These crises swept through societies like a financial wildfire, exposing, in the harshest way possible, how fragile the so-called unshakable systems we build truly are. In a moment, you will witness 5 different regions, 5 real economies, and how their paper currencies turned to ash, and what this collapse truly cost the people living through it. And as you listen to these stories, remember this critical truth: inflation does not always arrive with explosions and noise. It seeps in silently. It spreads like a whisper. And by the time most people grasp the scale of the danger, it is already too late to escape the storm. Let us begin our journey in 1923 Germany, in the dark days of the Weimar Republic. Emerging from the wreckage of World War I, Germany found itself burdened with an impossible mountain of debt. The Treaty of Versailles imposed a crushing war reparation of 132 billion gold marks, an amount so immense it would take generations to repay. So how did the German government attempt to escape this trap? They turned to the printing press, producing money endlessly. At first, everything seemed under control, but soon enough, the massive wave crashed ashore. Prices doubled, then tripled, and eventually spiraled completely out of control. By November 1923, the German mark had become nothing more than a piece of paper with numbers printed on it. To buy a single loaf of bread, you needed 200 billion marks. People burned bundles of banknotes for heat instead of firewood, while children stacked worthless piles of money like bricks in the streets. Middle-class families watched helplessly as a lifetime of savings evaporated within weeks. But the true devastation was not in the numbers, it was in the minds of the people. What collapsed was not just the currency, but trust itself. Once a society loses faith in the value of its money, trade halts, contracts break down, salaries disintegrate, and dreams fall apart. This financial ruin laid the groundwork for social collapse. It created such an atmosphere of desperation and chaos that extremists found fertile ground to rise. Just a decade later, the path that led Adolf Hitler to power was paved, in part, by the scars of this economic trauma. Now let us leap forward in time to the early 2000s to Zimbabwe. Under President Robert Mugabe, the government, facing heavy sanctions and deep economic isolation, initiated radical land seizure policies that devastated the country's agricultural productivity, its economic lifeline. As production collapsed, the government's response was all too familiar. They pushed the printing press to its limits, and the inevitable destructive spiral began once again. By 2008, Zimbabwe's economy had turned into a numerical absurdity. Inflation was estimated to have reached a staggering 79.6 billion%. Prices were doubling every 24 hours. The government tried to tame the beast on paper by constantly adding more zeros to note banks, 10 million, then 100 billion, and eventually the infamous $100 trillion notes entered circulation. In the end, they surrendered, abandoning their own currency entirely and turning to foreign ones like the US dollar and the South African rand. But what was the real cost of this mathematical madness? It wasn't just the zeros on paper. This hyperinflation storm wiped out the retirement dreams of tens of thousands, crippled industry, and created an entire generation of economic refugees. When the dust settled, one truth remained. Paper wealth had vanished, and only tangible assets, land, skills, and real value endured. Now we move to the most extreme case in recorded history, Hungary in 1946. This was not merely an economic crisis, it was a financial suicide of unprecedented scale. Emerging from the ruins of World War II, Hungary stood in the middle of total economic devastation. In an attempt to rebuild and repay massive war debts, the government printed its currency, the pengo, at a pace that pushed the limits of the printing presses themselves. At the peak of chaos, the economy defied logic. Prices doubled every 15 hours. Inflation reached an incomprehensible 41.9 quadrillion %. Money was losing value so rapidly that the government introduced new denominations just to keep up. First the mil pengo, then the B pengo, 1 billion pengo, but no piece of paper could extinguish the fire. Eventually, the currency collapsed entirely and was replaced with the forint, forcing a complete reset. So what was crushed beneath those enormous numbers? Everything. Hungary's middle class was erased overnight. A lifetime of savings became worthless, unable to buy even a crumb of bread. The government lost all legitimacy in the eyes of its people. This hyperinflation did not just reset the economy, it erased the past, destroyed livelihoods, and wiped out hope for the future. Now we move to a modern tragedy unfolding before the world's eyes, Venezuela in the 2010s and beyond. A country with the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, overflowing with resources, collapsed under the weight of political mismanagement. Years of corruption, strict price controls, reckless nationalizations, and unsustainable monetary policies turned what was once one of the region's most prosperous nations into a cautionary tale. Once again, the government turned to the printing press to cover massive budget deficits and maintain control. The inevitable result was hyperinflation, spiraling out of control. By 2018, inflation had surpassed an unimaginable 1,000,000%. Imagine living in such a reality. The day you receive your salary, you must spend it within hours before it loses half its value. Supermarket shelves emptied, barter systems returned, and survival replaced stability. Doctors and engineers fled the country, working as delivery drivers abroad just to survive. Just like in Zimbabwe, the government tried the adding zeros game until one night they simply removed 6 zeros from the currency. But erasing zeros on paper did nothing to fix the real destruction. Hyperinflation shattered not just wallets, but the entire economic and social fabric of Venezuela, turning millions into migrants within their lifetime. Once again, history delivered its harsh lesson. Only those with tangible assets or access to hard currencies stayed afloat. Finally, let us turn to a lesser discussed yet equally devastating case, Yugoslavia in the 1990s. As the Soviet bloc collapsed, the country descended into violent fragmentation, politically and economically. War, sanctions, and severe policy failures brought the economy to its knees. By 1993, inflation had reached an astonishing 313 million% per month. Prices were doubling roughly every 1.4 days. In desperation, the government introduced multiple new currencies, but each one acted like a black hole, swallowing people's savings. Citizens abandoned the official currency entirely, turning instead to the German mark and US dollar. Their own money became a tragic joke, used to light cigarettes or cover broken shop windows. As you can see, history repeats the same deadly pattern. A government faces a deep crisis, resorts to uncontrolled money printing, public trust evaporates, the currency collapses, and society itself begins to fracture. Different countries, different decades, but always the same fatal mistake. Now, you might be thinking, yes, these things happened, but they belong to the past. We're smarter now. We've learned our lesson. But have we really?